Hello everyone, my name is Sarah Cahill and welcome back to my channel. This first week of Preptober has been difficult, and I say difficult, I mean I haven't done much work at all in regards to Preptober, which is not how I wanted the month to start. But I guess if I'm going to take an impromptu break, it's better I take it during Preptober than in November. I did work on the 1st. I did quite a bit of work on the 1st, and then I did no work at all until the 6th. That's how my week's been so far. It's not good. For Preptober, obviously, I am attempting to, at this point, outline Abingdon number 5, which is the last book in my middle grade magical realism series, Abingdon House, which I have been writing for the entire past year. And I thought I'd go in very excited, and I thought I'd go in raring to do the writing, but after that first day, after the 1st, I just didn't do any work. I don't know why. I don't know whether my brain wanted to take a break or whether or not I was feeling anxious or stressed about this being the final step in my crazy stupid writing plans for 2021. I don't quite know what it was. I remember sitting down to work on the 5th, and I was in Discord and I set up a sprint, and I was just like, I'm just going to do 20 minutes worth of focus work, at least 20 minutes, get a scene done. And I was feeling fine, and then I started the sprint and I was looking at my work, and I just remember started to feel so crappy, and I felt nauseous and I felt hot and I felt lightheaded, but not like in the dizzy way, like you're really tired way. And I was like, why am I suddenly feeling like this? I was fine 5 minutes ago. What is this that's just suddenly hit me? So I don't know whether it was just like, oh, I need to start doing this outline now, or whether or not my body was just like, no, don't try to do any work. I did do some work. I wrote for about 5 minutes and managed to outline the first scene, and then called it a day until the 6th, where I managed to get some actual work done, and I've managed to get some actual work done today as well so far, which is good. It's fabulous. So where I wanted to have a lovely week-long vlog in regards to outlining Abingdon House, you're gonna get what I do now, some lovely b-roll of nature. Enjoy that, and we'll be back with how I've outlined so far and my plans going forward.
Take a picture of me and the ducks.
I usually use Save the Cat in regards to outlining. I find it easiest to set up all of the beats of the story, to make sure that the pacing is right, to make sure that the important parts of the story are in the right places in regards to the percentage of the story that they must happen in, as in Midpoint has to take place obviously in the middle of the novel, and that the right events are in those right places. But I thought, you know what, no, I'm not going to use Save the Cat this time around for Abingdon number 5. Probably a big mistake to branch out now with this final big book, but what are you going to do about it, really? It's not like the last time I branched out and did something different, it all went terribly, terribly wrong. Abingdon number 2. So instead of using Save the Cat method, I decided to outline my story, or at least outline my main beats, with the 7-point story structure, which is very similar to Save the Cat. They're all very similar, to be fair, but it's got 7 main points to it. Number 1 is the hook, which is, you know, it's where you start. It's usually the first scene of the first chapter, establishing the character and your settings. Number 2 is plot point 1, which is basically the inciting incident, the thing that sets the plot off. Number 3 is pinch point 1. This takes place in Act 2. It's the beginning of your character's journey, their reactions to everything that is happening around them, and where the antagonist is introduced. Number 4 is midpoint, which is the midpoint of your novel, a major event which will change how your character goes about their journey. Number 5 is pinch point number 2. This is a turning point where something goes wrong, because of course it does. Number 6 is plot point number 2, which is basically the lead up to and the climax, so that's firmly rooted into Act 3, where the protagonist and the antagonist meet face to face. And number 7 is the resolution, the conclusion of the novel, the final scene where we see the character in their altered state after everything they have gone through in the rest of the book. Now, this sounds like a very easy plot structure to set all of your beats and events to, but I found it a little bit odd to do, and whether it's me not fully researching it further, because I got all my information and all of the things from Masterclass. You've got all of these different events, but there's nothing there that sort of helps guide where they need to be. And the wording sort of makes it seem like there are multiple events which occur within some of these different points. Pinch point 1, for example, sounds sort of like fun and games, as in it's not one set event that is the pinch point. It is a multiple number of events that take place throughout the first half of Act 2, but that's not implicitly stated. And the same with pinch point number 2, sounds a lot like bad guys close in, a multiple number of events that push further and further towards the climax, as opposed to one single event, which everything else seems to be. I had a lot of trouble deciding where I wanted to put these things. With Save the Cat, it's very easy. You have 0 to 1% needs to be the opening image. You have 50%, which needs to be midpoint. Those numbers help me with my pacing because I suck with pacing. You don't have that in the 7-point story structure. You just have in Act 2, near Act 3, and it's like, okay, but where in Act 2 do I put this specific beat in order for the story to progress without there being too little before or after? Now that my moment of stupidity has passed in regards to the 7-point story structure, my brain finally figured it out. Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, we start with the hook. Plot point 1 encompasses the rest of Act 1, ending in the inciting incident. Act 2 starts with pinch point 1, and that goes up until the midpoint. Then everything past midpoint culminates in pinch point number 2. And then Act 3 is obviously plot point 2, which is leading up to the climax, and then the resolution at the end. I should have just stuck with Save the Cat. It would have saved me a lot of trouble. But no, we're trying new things, and my child is putting her fingers in my tea. I outlined really weirdly. I outlined the same way that I outlined for my rewrite for Project Mystic, which is basically I put 50 empty scene cards into Scrivener for 50 different scenes that I'm going to have in Abingdon number 5. The thought being each scene will be at least 1,000 words, which will get me my 50k once all 50 scenes are complete. And then based off of my notes for the plot that I wrote the other week, I think a couple of days before Preptober started actually, because I've been struggling with what plot I'm going to use for the book, I filled each of those 50 scenes in with something that I wanted to happen within the novel. Most of those were in regards to the plot that I had come up with, and then obviously I had spare ones in order to put in characters talking, something else interesting happening, etc, etc. So once all of those 50 scenes were filled out in non-chronological order, I literally, the first things I thought of, I wrote down on the different scene cards. Once I'd done all that, then came the arduous task of actually putting it into some semblance of plot order, which didn't take me as long as I assumed it would, but it made me realise a lot of things about the plot, which originally changed from my very basic Save the Cat beat sheet that I did while I was coming up with the plot, just for the main events before I started outlining properly with the 7-point story structure. And that was the midpoint that I had sort of imagined in my head in regards to the novel, was not actually the midpoint. Obviously what had happened was, when I put all of the scenes in order, the moment that I wanted to be at my midpoint was a lot further into the beginning of Act 2 than I wanted it to be, or that I assumed it would be. And I had too many things going on after the midpoint and leading into Act 3 and the climax to make what I wanted the midpoint to be the actual midpoint. And these were scenes that I could not move, because unlike Project Mystic, where certain things could happen whenever I wanted them to and I could fit them to the plot, these scenes firmly took place after the midpoint for Abingdon 5, because it is a quest in 2 parts. They need to do the first part of the quest before they get to the second part of the quest. The first part of the quest culminates in the midpoint in my head, and then the second part of the quest took place after the midpoint. But there was way too much stuff after the midpoint for me to have what I wanted the midpoint to be the midpoint. It was absolutely not a problem, because as it turned out, while I was counting where my actual midpoint was within the scenes, it happened to be that the scene that was currently sitting at midpoint was the perfect scene to have as midpoint anyway, because it is a major turning point in regards to Hazel, the main character. It is a major turning point in how they understand how the antagonist's plot works. So it worked out fine. It was not a problem at all whatsoever. My setup for Scrivener is very simple. We have all of the 50 scenes that I have picked for Abingdon House over here on the left hand side, and then obviously in the scene card view we have them all here. I have done 2 different color codes. The first color code I have done is the orange, which is every single point in the 7-story plot structure going down, so I can sort of see where they are. And the red highlights separate very nicely Act 1, which is here at the top, Act 2, which is from the red there, down to Act 3, which is from the red color code here. So I'm not color coding every single one at the moment. That is how I am sorting it. And then instead of writing in the synopsis like I have been doing with Project Mystic, I'm literally just writing everything down in the notes here, because I can write a lot more and I won't have to copy from the synopsis down to the notes like I'm going to have to do with Project Mystic when I start writing that next year. Now all that is left for me to do for the rest of Preptober is finish off all of these scenes, hopefully with as much detail as I have already started it. I know for a fact I'm not going to be too upset if I don't manage to get all of the scenes written in as much detail as I want. I have absolutely no qualms about picking a scene and then fleshing out the outline that I have for it on the day, because it's only 1,667 words I need to write per day, which is just very easy for me to do if I'm in the right frame of mind. So I have no qualms about doing that. I want at least everything with something written on it, though. That is my goal. Hopefully now that I have started writing again, hopefully now that my motivation is there, it will continue throughout the entirety of October and I'll actually get the work done. But if I do need to take another break, I want it to be before November hits, because I don't want to even think about, you know, not being able to write during NaNoWriMo. That would not be ideal. Possibly manageable depending on how much I break, but it would not be ideal. So brain, body, if you do need to take a break, please do it over the next 24 days. So that is where I am currently sitting in my Preptober plans for 2021. Let me know how the month has gone so far for you, and I will see you in the next video. Good thoughts and happy writing.